Good morning again, everybody. I'm Ted with Foxhole Homes. Right now, we're going to talk about one of the most basic parts of the Earthship build, and we call that pack out. And that's what we do to fill up all the voids between the tires. So it's great that we can build out of recycled tires, but I don't exactly want to be staring at those every day in my house, right? That's not what I want to see, and so we have to have a way to fill the voids in there. So we're going to walk through that process really quick. And there's basically three parts to doing pack out. First is what we call porcupining. Second is mixing up the mortar that we'll use to do it. And then third is using other materials to kind of fill the void so that we're using as little mortar material as we can. There's two different styles of mortar that we use depending on where it is in the house. If it's on the exterior of the building, or if it is where there will be water, i.e. the bathroom or the kitchen, we're going to use a cement-based or a Portland-based plaster or mortar that is going to be water resistant. If we're in an area of the house that isn't going to be wet, like the living area or a bedroom, that kind of thing, we can go with a pure Adobe mortar mix that is a combination of clay, sand, and straw. What we're going to be doing for our mortar mix today, and I'll walk through this again in a little bit, is 1 part Portland, 1 part Portland, 5 parts sand for this kind of rough piece in the beginning. You're going to increase the amount of Portland as you move to the finish coats. But 1 part Portland, 5 parts sand, and then some fiberglass fibers to help lock everything together. So real quick, gonna talk about porcupining first. And basically what porcupining does is if I were to just put a concrete block in this hole, well, it's all convex, right? So it's gonna allow that would have the potential to just fall out. So I've got to have something in order to lock it together. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take nails, screws, any random thing that I have, and I'm going to take those and I'm going to just hammer them into place. Now, notice if I do this, what's happening? Yeah, bouncing. I got a rubber tire. Now, I've been using a hammer for a while, but if I try to do that way, I'm going to mash my fingers a lot. So I have children, and one of my wise children was watching Curious George. And on Curious George, right? He's over there. He's a smart guy. Watching Curious George, they showed a method to not mash your fingers as you're setting a nail. And what you do is you just take a pair of pliers and you hold the nail in the pair of pliers, and I put that on there, and then I can go big. Right? And it allows me to set that nail, and I probably went a little too far there. I set that nail in there, and then I'm going to put 2 or 3 nails here, and then a couple of nails in each of the edges, right? And again, I'm just going to grab that with my pair of pliers, and I'm going to whack it, and it's going to go into place. And it doesn't have to be a whole bunch of them, but just by doing a few of these in each of these positions, it gives that concrete block a way to lock into place. And once the mortar is dried around those nails, it locks it all together so that it can't come apart. So porcupining is a huge piece. And that's it. That's all I've got to do in that space, and that will be enough to lock that block into place once everything is dried. I'm going to walk you through this real quick, and then we'll kind of take a break as we mix the mortar. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up my mortar. I'm going to throw a big handful of it in there, and we'll do this again here in just a second. And then I'm going to take an old brown bottle, right? I like to save the colored ones for my bottle walls, but I can take a brown bottle and I can slide it right in there to fill up some of the void, fill up some of the space without having to use as much mud or as much mortar in that process as I go. So when we're mixing up the mortar on this one, it's going to be 5 parts. It's going to be 5 parts sand, which I've already put in the mixer, right? And then, which I just used a shovel full, right? And then I'm going to use one. Well, I'm not going to be able to get a good shovel on that one. I'm going to use 1 shovelful, which is going to be about 2/3 of this part of the bag, of Portland in there. And I'm going to use a tiny a little handful of fiberglass fibers, and those will kind of break apart inside this mix and create bonds in between that will keep it from cracking. I'm going to take a break for just a second because we'll have to start the generator to run the mixer, and then once I get the mix about right, we'll pick back up. All right. Okay, so now I've got my mud. I'm going to come over to my wall where my porcupining is done. I'm going to grab a big handful of mud. I'm going to throw it in the hole. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to take my bottle and I'm just going to press it into place right there, right? And I should have porcupined more of this as I went, but so that's what I'm doing. I'm going to porcupine around, putting the nails in, put in a handful of mud, and then stick in a bottle. And then I'm going to let that dry, and then we can come back in, put another couple of handfuls of mud, and 2 bottles. And then we'll just continue to build out until we're almost at the outside surface of the build.